Special intentions.
I like the hat, Mr.
Yes,
Sports
thank you.
special.
Special. If you're watching this, we're about to pray. I'm wearing a hat because it's Ultimate Pride Day. Okay.
There's a cross on it.
And there's a cross. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Glory be.
To the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, the world without end.
Amen.
So
Okay.
read through your shit is such. That's a pretty
All
cool
right.
title.
It's such a flex until you have to go to the hospital.
So, guys, we took the test yesterday.
How did they work?
Okay, look at that. They were not great.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we can't talk about the questions because we have somebody here who hasn't taken the test yet. So don't ask me any questions. But I will tell you the true and false got a couple of people, a few people, a little bit here and there. Okay, so I mean they weren't awful, but you may have missed some that you didn't think you missed. Okay, so, but there were a few, 3 or 4 that were really good.
Can you tell us our scores?
You want to know?
Yes.
All right, this is on the recording that you can fast forward, okay? This is on the first part. There's how many questions? There's 5, 10, 17 points with the long answers. So this is out of the first 44. Okay, how many missed out of the first 44? Do you want to know? Iris isn't here. Ella, do you want to know?
Yes.
Jossie?
Yeah.
4 plus 2. Briar? 8. Max?
Yeah.
Minus 2 plus 1. Josh? Minus 1 plus 2. Ready? You want to come look?
Studies.
Also, how'd you get World War II and World War I? Which one did you get wrong? I just didn't know World War I, but I knew World War
Andy? Minus 5 plus 2. Emerson? Minus 3 plus 2. Jackson? Minus 4 plus 2. Dustin, not here. Bella? Sage? JD?
That's gonna go down. No, man, that's gonna go down. I like your title for it. Doing that in master's
You
school.
see that? Master's degree? Joseph not here. Nicole?
When are we gonna go to a
Ashton?
When are we gonna go to a concert?
Looking like that.
Emma, you know?
I already know which one I got wrong.
Hey?
They told us that.
Peter?
Also, like, you, I've never been to a more electric.
Olivia?
This morning that my Thunder
Lauren?
We were driving by.
Sophia? Back?
Shot.
Keegan.
Honestly, I should have expected some photo.
Fish. Jadar. Olivia.
Thanks.
Lily. Okay. Say hi, everybody. Say hi. Hi. Okay. All right, this is my second hour honors history class, 2024. All right. Okay, guys, I'm going to teach. Why? Because I like to teach. All right, so Pearl Harbor has transpired. The Atlantic Charter said we're going to focus on Europe first, the Pacific second. Okay, so we have to open our what? We need to open our what to win this war? Our supply lines.
Mr. Brett.
Listen, if we can't get supplies across to Europe, and pretty soon, guys, the most precious cargo that we have will be going across the Atlantic, and that will be our troops. If we can't get them across the Atlantic safely, we're in trouble. So this battle for the Atlantic is going to take place between mid-42 and mid-43. Okay? We've got to clear the Atlantic of German U-boats. Now, I have a quote. This is actually a quote. The end of the beginning from Winston Churchill. So once the United States finally gets in this war, Churchill's going to be brought over to the United States on a ship, okay? And he's going to address both houses of the U.S. Congress. He's going to give a speech at the end of 1942, so about 1 year after Pearl Harbor. Now, guys, in that first year, we're not going to accomplish a lot because we're still getting ready for war. But Churchill says this in front of both houses of Congress. He says, this is not the end. This is not the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. Now, we did make some big strides in that first year, okay? And one of them is to clear these German subs, okay? Now, where there's a will, there's a way. And guys, again, this is why smart people are important. We've got to figure out a way to locate these U-boats and take them out. So, like with earlier battles, radar, the invention of sonar, okay, which is going to help us. Sound navigation and ranging. Sonar. Now, guys, we know that dolphins do this, whales do this, right? Okay, we're going to do this. And it kind of looks like this. You can see in the notes here, you send out a ping. You ever watched any submarine movies? It kind of sounds like, boom, boom. And it goes out into the water. It hits an object and reverberates back, giving its location away, its depth and location. As you see here in the notes. Now, could that object be a whale? What's the largest animal on the planet? The blue whale. You think we killed any blue whales? No.
Oil.
I'm sure we did.
That's what they made the.
Poor whales. Stop building the wind turbines in the Atlantic, killing the whales. Yes. You haven't heard about this? Who's heard of this? Yeah, it's killing the
They
whales.
like attract the whales, some of them, and they go into right into the.
It's all the noise, man. All the noise is messing with them.
They
They're
don't
washing
even, like,
up on the shore.
Go into them. They just like
Get disoriented and
a bunch of whales get beats.
I don't like them.
But the whales weren't getting beached before. It's just something
Now,
disorients their radar.
Once you spot one of these U-boats,
I don't like this sound.
how are we gonna take it out? Missiles. No. What'd you say? Depth charges and torpedoes, right? Now torpedoes, guys, you gotta kind of be close. You gotta hit it. It's like hitting a target, okay? Now with a depth charge, now I know you guys have probably never seen one of these before. Have you ever been to a Catholic wedding? Of course you have. You ever seen a keg of beer before?
Yeah.
Of course you have. I'm talking to a Catholic school classroom right now. Okay,
What does
now,
that mean?
what do you think it is? Have you ever been to a Holy Roller Protestant wedding reception?
Yeah.
A lot of them are dry.
Oh, but then Catholics are.
And then you go to a Catholic wedding reception, as I found out
Are you talking to me?
from experience, I'm like, hey, invite me when you get married, okay?
I know how to do it.
I'll be there. So, what I'm saying is they're like kegs, but they're depth charges, okay? And so when you locate the depth and location of a U-boat, you launch these off the back of a destroyer, they sink to the depth that you set them to, and they blow up. Now, do you have to have a direct hit? No. You guys have all been in the deep end at 10 feet, and you can feel the pressure in your ears, right? When you're underwater like that, there's a lot of pressure. So a large explosion close to a submarine has the opportunity to crack the hull of a sub. If you crack the hull of a sub, what does that sub have to do? Got to surface. And a surface sub is a sitting duck or a lame duck, if you will.
Is it like Crocodile Dundee when he like blows the dynamite up in the water to kill a fish?
Something like that. So, a depth charge, this is from a video game, situation looks like this. Got these subs throwing all these depth charges out, okay? Hopefully you hit one, okay, or get close to one. This is a sitting duck. A surface submarine is easy for a destroyer to attack. This is what it looks like on the surface when the depth charge goes off. Okay, you'll see that come up, right? So, this next photograph, this guy is doing some sub hunting. See? Okay. Now, of course, I have a video.
Part two of Winston Churchill speeches. This is not the beginning. This is not the end. This is not the middle. This is not like the second thing after the beginning. This is not the second to last thing before the end.
Going to.
This is not 63% of the way through. This is not 47% of the way through.
That's fine.
This is not the beginning of the middle of the beginning of the end. Just that for 20 minutes.
So I tried to give you a color one here. It's about 20 years ago. Not very deep. If you read the comments on this, they actually hit like a
coverage.
Show transcripts.
So, see what that's like. Okay, now, from the air, guys, we can also use radar. And, you know, some of the ocean is blue and you can see into the ocean and spot these things, okay? So this is a Pegasus, but they had other ones as well as the Catalina, other types of flying boats that, now, they have a limited range with fuel, so they can patrol fairly far out from the coastline. But the long range, they developed long range Catalinas and Pegasus. So they use radar in conjunction with sonar, and they were able to find these subs, okay, and take them out. Okay, long story short, but this is the Battle of the Atlantic. Yeah.
Didn't the Germans think something that made their subs like undetectable by sonar?
Not in World War II, I don't think. Now, we have subs today that I think they have like sonar, it's like our stealth. So I think that's a much later invention. I could be wrong. Yeah.
Did the Germans have like high-speed boats? Like, or was that something later too?
I mean, they
Like
Probably
boats that just went like, I don't know what we're talking about. Never mind.
Yeah.
I just remember us talking about that somewhere.
I mean, guys, there's lots of weird facts and stuff that I probably don't know about. You guys have mentioned some, you know,
I was a weird guy.
okay. So we use the convoys. Okay, this is a convoy of ships that will go across. They'll be defended by destroyers and cruisers that will circle around the convoy to look for German U-boats. Okay, so these two methods between using radar and sonar, depth charges, torpedoes, we were able to find and sink these subs. They called them wolf packs when they would travel in groups of subs, okay, wreaking havoc. And I've given you this number a couple of times. 4,600 merchant ships were sunk in the Atlantic in World War II. And at least that many in World War I as well. So guys, there's a lot of stuff at the bottom of the Atlantic, okay? We were able to destroy 785 U-boats. This opens our vital supply lines. Don't win the war without these supply lines being open. You understand? So anytime you study military history, there's different things that you focus on. And, you know, the term that we use a lot today is logistics, okay? It's a major focus that doesn't get a lot of coverage. I think it's kind of interesting. I read an article one time about once we land in France and we're moving across France, where do we get the gas and the oil to fuel our tanks and all these thousands of tanks and so forth? They had pipelines running along the streets, you know, that they would to pump oil to the front. And the French would like plug into it, you know, and steal the gas and so forth. You had to worry about sabotage and stuff like that. So, all right, so we're going to win the Battle of the Atlantic. We're going to open those supply lines, okay? Good? Okay, so let's talk about the strategy here, okay? Let me come over to the map over here. Okay, I'm going to use this one. Okay, so we know the Germans and the Italians have control over Europe, okay, with the exception of Britain, okay? Now, remember Dunkirk, where British got defeated, the French got defeated, we saved all those men. In order to come back across the English Channel, the Germans have started setting up defenses. And in order to cross into the teeth of the German army, it's almost suicide. Churchill has seen the strength of the German army. The Americans, guys, our soldiers are all green. very few of these men were in World War I. If they were in World War I, they're commanders, like Patton. Patton was a tank commander in World War I. Okay, he's going to be a general in World War II. Okay, so all of our troops are green. They haven't seen combat, and Churchill's trying to explain this to Roosevelt, that you have to start slow with your guys. Your leadership and your infantry, your soldiers. The soft underbelly of the beast. Okay, where's that? Well, guys, that's going to be the Mediterranean in North Africa. Okay, so when I go to the next slide, I'll show you a map of North Africa. Okay, Churchill wins this argument. Okay, and he's right. So this is the Mediterranean in North Africa. So let me explain a couple of things here for you. Have you guys ever seen the movie, top five movie, all time, American film history, Casablanca? Okay. In order to understand the movie Casablanca, which is here in Morocco, you need to understand that this is French Morocco. This is French Algiers. This is Italian-controlled Libya. Who controls Egypt? The British. In fact, the British control a large part of the Middle East. Okay? What the Germans want to do, with their now French puppets and their Italian allies, is get to the Middle East, to the oil fields of the Middle East. Now, the Germans are up here fighting in Russia. They're going to fight this way. This is the Suez Canal, one of the most important pieces of body of water in the world, right here, the Suez Canal. So the Germans are going to try and come here and get to the Middle East. Now, talk about some stuff that's not in the history books very much. The Muslims of the Middle East, they hated the British because the British occupied that area. Okay. Well, who's at war with the British? The Nazis. You guys remember Saddam Hussein of Iraq? His uncle was in talks with the Nazis because what the Muslims wanted there was a one region government, a caliphate. Okay? And so they were actually in talks with the Nazis to help them against the British. Okay? The Germans and the Muslims against the British in the Middle East. Really interesting stuff. I'm not going to go into it any more than that. Okay? But it is interesting. Okay? Now, Tunisia is controlled by the Italians. Okay? So, you've got German troops here in North Africa headed towards the Suez Canal, towards the British. You got the Italians, they've already taken Albania. Yes? So, the first place where American troops are going to land in World War II is going to be in North Africa. It will not be until November of 1942, so 11 months after Pearl Harbor. 11 months, okay? We will land here at Casablanca, Algiers, and Oran. Here. The first troops the Americans are going to face are going to be troops from what country? In Casablanca. French. The French are puppets of the Germans. They're in charge in Morocco. The French are. So if you watch the movie Casablanca, guys, which is great, Casablanca was a place that people from all over Europe tried to get to escape Europe. They would try to get here, catch a plane or a ship out of Europe, get out. Okay, so it had a lot of people coming in and out. You had the French in charge, but the Germans were there. Okay, so it's an interesting dynamic. Okay, now once the United States gets in, here we land here. We're going to fight the French. How are the French? What are the French going to do? What do the French always do? They quit. Okay, now we're going to fight some Italians here as well. You know what they're going to do? They're going to quit. I don't want to fight the Americans. Okay? Now, eventually we're going to run into some Germans. But the British are going to run into them first. Okay? So, success in North Africa. Germans were under the command of General Erwin Rommel, otherwise known as the Desert Fox. This is known in the German military as the African Corps. Okay. So Rommel is going to try and take the Suez Canal. There to meet him is going to be General Bernard Montgomery, otherwise known as Monty. General the Americans love to hate. General Bernard Montgomery, head of the British 8th Army. They are going to meet in a major battle here, about 70 miles west of the Suez Canal in a place called El Alamein. This is desert warfare. Okay? Something about the U.S. military knows a lot more about now these days than it did back then. Now, are we allowed to steep praise upon a German general? Is that allowed? Are we allowed to steep praise on General Robert E. Lee? Or you just can't because he was part of the Confederacy. You just can't because he was part of the Nazi Germans. Well, if you're a historian and you're analyzing General Lee or General Rommel, what you'll find is that they were very good generals. Rommel is described as shrewd, daring, and resourceful. So let me explain. Rommel's a pilot. He goes up in his own plane and does reconnaissance of the British Army. He comes back to headquarters, draws up a battle plan against the British, and then carries it out, not from the rear, but from the front with his men. He is there directing the action. This is the kind of general you want to serve under. You don't want to serve under a general that's 100 miles to the rear trying to direct the action. Like General Friedendahl, who's in charge of the U.S. First Army when we first encountered the Germans. And we'll get our butts kicked. And Friedendahl will be replaced with one of America's great World War II generals. He will be replaced by General George S. Patton, who will kick the Germans' butt across Europe. Okay? So, some of you are familiar with this machine. This machine is called the Enigma. It's a British code machine. It's extremely sophisticated and extremely difficult to break. How many of you guys know the name Alan Turing? Okay, a couple. You may have seen the movie Imitation Game. Yes? No? Hadn't seen it, Josh? You should see it. Nobody else has seen Imitation Game? Emma? You've seen it? Okay. Story of Alan Turing. Now, guys, the British, they have smart people too. Okay? There's a pretty good show on Netflix called Bletchley Park. Bletchley Park is outside of London. And that's where they took the brightest minds that they could find in Britain, men and women, to try and break this code machine. Now, the fact is, you can't break the code unless you know the settings of the code that day. So Alan Turing built a computer in 1942. It was about the size of this room that would reverse engineer the messages to find out what the code setting was. Now, this all sounds really confusing. So I have a video. It's right here.
So the Enigma was the German.
The German code machine. Come on. Oh, yeah. Hold on.
And then I said, hold on.
Hopefully YouTube doesn't lock me out because of this.
The German Secret Service units issued a code book which contained the settings for each day, which changed at midnight. All Enigma operators within the local network had to set their machines to the code setting for the day, so that each of them could encode and decode letters and messages. Firstly, the operators chose 3 rotors from a box of 5. These rotors were all wired differently, and before placing them in the machine, the operators reset an inner wheel on the rotor to a marked position on the outer ring. They were then placed in the machine in the order indicated in the code book. Next, the rotors are set to the letters of the day. The next part of the procedure is the stecker board, which is indicated in the front of the machine. These steckers, which are plugs, are changed according to the code book again, and each plug will change one letter. For example, the letter A to the letter K. When the operator presses, let's say, the letter A, it sets up an electric current which runs through the machine, first through the stecker board, changing the letter each time it goes, then runs to the rear of the machine, first through the 3 rotors, hits a reflector plate, and comes back on a different part of the 3 rotors again, finally lighting a lamp at the rear of the machine, indicating another letter other than the one which was pressed. The Enigma machine cannot encode the letter that you press in the first instance. The remarkable thing about Enigma is that when you press a letter on the keyboard and the subsequent enciphered letter lights up to the rear of the machine, the chances of that letter lighting up are nearly 158 million to 1. Now, to put that into perspective, your chances of winning the British National Lottery are approximately 18 million to 1. It's a misconception that if you have a Enigma machine, you can break any Enigma messages. This, of course, is completely untrue. It's necessary to break the key setting for the day before you can understand an Enigma message.
So that's what Alan Turing did. He figured out a way to figure out what the code was that day. 3 letters. Okay, by reverse engineering it through a computer. Now, the movie itself, guys, just, we talk about movies. Movie itself is pretty good. It's played by that dude, Cumberbatch. Is it Cumberbatch? Cumberbatch? Yeah, that guy. Alan Turing in real life, gay. Okay, and so Hollywood, looked at it. Okay, so they make this a big part of the story, and it is part of the story. There's no question, because if you were gay in 1942, now he got married to a woman and tried to hide the fact that he was gay. If it was found out that he was gay, he could be blackmailed so that he wouldn't be exposed. The fact that you can be blackmailed is a national security risk. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's kind of part of the story with Alan Turing. Okay. It is a really good movie and worth 2 hours of your time if you ever run across the movie called Imitation Game. Okay, really good. Now, the show Bletchley Park, which used to be on Netflix, I'm not sure if it is. It's kind of a cute show. It's, the British do really good stuff. But it's about a group of women that worked at Bletchley Park during the war that helped with code breaking. That after the war, a lot of women that had jobs during the war, they lost those jobs to men after the war. And so these 5 code breaking women use their abilities as code breakers to solve murders. By reading about stuff in the newspaper, they go out to solve murders. It's called Bletchley Park. It's a good show. Okay. All right, we'll pick up from there on Monday. Okay, you guys have a good weekend.